New Zealand has pledged $20 million to poorer countries for loss and damage caused by climate change.
It's the first time in the history of the COP UN climate summits that loss and damage has even made the agenda. But contributions from major emitters like the US and China are missing. Climate correspondent Isabel Ewing reports.
In the Pacific, loss and damage is much more than UN climate jargon. It is real. The loss of homes to sea level rise, the damage to lives, culture and identity.
Our survival is being held to ransom at the cost of profit and an unwillingness to act, despite the ability to do so.
The president of Palau puts it even more bluntly.
The climate crisis is tearing us apart, limb by limb.
In UN climate talks, loss and damage refers to the costs borne by vulnerable countries from disasters caused by climate change and the question of who should pay. After a year of disasters, it's the key issue at COP and the most difficult to resolve.
It's significant in that it's taken 27 years to get it as far as being on the agenda.
That's because the most powerful countries are reluctant to pay up, fearing once that Pandora's box is opened, liabilities will spiral.
Today, we are calling for those who are the largest emitters of pollution to take responsibility for the damage they cause.
That call for a special compensation fund has been answered by precious few, including Scotland and the UK government with £5 million each, New Zealand with $20 million. For some perspective, the 10 worst climate-related disasters last year caused $170 billion in damages.
This new announcement is perhaps used a little bit to get brownie points at a global stage.
The climate change minister hoping it'll send a strong signal to other nations.
I do think that the more countries make contributions into loss and damage, the more it builds pressure on the big players to get involved.
There's a fortnight now to get those big players on board and then get them to stick to it.
Well, Isabel Ewing joins us now. Isabel, do these pledges hold much weight?
Well, Sam, it is hard to have much faith when wealthy countries still haven't delivered on a promise from COP 13 years ago. That was to deliver $100 billion in climate finance. That was to help poorer countries adapt and mitigate the effects of climate change. And so getting the big players to cough up for the immense damage that their emissions have caused, that's much harder. It opens the door to litigation. However, New Zealand's $20 million contribution is about the moral principle, recognising the damage that our Pacific neighbours have incurred and suffered as a result of climate change. And strategically, this is an incredibly important signal to the US and China to say, we have the Pacific's priorities front of mind. Where are you guys? So it will be interesting to see whether there's any movement from those big players in the coming days.
Our climate correspondent, Isabel Ewing, thanks so much for the analysis.